with Martin, a member of the NPOC of GNSO. It's the Not-for-Profit Operational Concerns Constituency. Welcome, Martin.
Thank you very much.
Can you talk to us a little bit about the roles and mission of NPOC in ICANN?
Sure. NPOC, as you said, the Non-for-Profit Operational Concerns Constituency, deals with the perspective of how NGOs use the DNS, basically for their operation, whatever it may be. So, for instance, an NGO can either be worried about freedom of expression online, or they can be worried about the environment. And in both cases, even when one is not involved in internet issues, they most probably use internet somehow, whether it is to communicate, to gather new members, to raise funds. And in all of those crucial activities for any NGO or corporation to move from their mission, DNS is crucial. It grants a tool that allows them to securely address whatever it is they have to address. So the NPOC, or the Non-for-Profit Operational Concerns Constituency, is part of the GNSO, the Generic Name Support Organizations. And the GNSO is inside ICANN the body that does policy of generic names like .com, .org, .net, .music, .hotel. Everything is a non-CCTLD, a country code, .country, is a generic name. So the Non-for-Profit Operational Concerns Constituency addresses that inside that body. It's basically how all generic names affect the operations of NGOs.
Right, thank you. So you mentioned that NPOC is dealing with a lot of ICANN policies. Mm-hmm. So can you give us a little bit detail, what are the topics that NPOC has been working on for a long time?
Sure. Since from the beginning, the idea is that NGOs, first of all, understand how an NGO uses a domain, and what challenges come from that. One of those is trademark protections mechanisms. Specifically inside ICANN, this is just one example of policy which at least I'm involved with, is the review of all right protections mechanisms. These mechanisms are there to protect trademarks, and NPOC's concern with those mechanisms is that NGOs' acronyms and names are also valuable and are also a legitimate use of the system. So whatever mechanism we create as a community to protect trademark, it has to be balanced out with NGO names, because we also need that space to work. So if we have an acronym, if my NGO has an acronym or a name that matches a trademark, the mechanism has to sort it out in a way that I am not put behind of a trademark. We have the same legitimate use. So that's one example of policy. Another way can be privacy. Not only privacy itself as an NGO that cares about privacy, but I care about privacy because as an operational concerns constituency, I have to deal with information databases from my members, or even from my staff, or even from my property. If I have a domain name as an NGO is part of my assets, of my operational things I use, the amount of information that the DNS requires from me as an NGO can't, in some examples or some cases, it can expose me to different things. For instance, different abuses of whois can also affect NGOs. Mm-hmm. So working around privacy issues, whois issues is also part of what NPOC is about.
All right, thank you. So there are other ICANN groups and organizations or community groups that nonprofit organizations or non-commercial interests could join. So why they should join NPOC instead of these other groups?
Well, going back to the example of the beginning, we are focusing exclusively on NGOs that are not-for-profit. That's our membership base. If you are an NGO or not-for-profit, your place is inside our constituency. It's true there are places where they can also join, but in our case, we look for the operation of the management of the NGO itself. So it's like this: if you join probably the NCUC, the non-commercial users, as an NGO, you're probably worried about the end user interests of the DNS, probably regarding freedom of expression or privacy, always toward the individual. At NPOC, our specific challenge, if you may, is to defend how NGOs use DNS for whatever their mission is. Again, if you're an environmental NGO, probably you're not worried of how individuals use domain names. That would be NCUC. But you are worried about your own use of DNS for the environmental movement. So you probably are worried that a trademark doesn't go after your name. And that's where NPOC comes from. We look after the operational or management of NGOs perspective.
Understood. So how many members NPOC already have, like the nonprofit organizations?
I don't have the specific number because I'm not right now in charge of that part, but last time I checked, we were over 18 members.
Wow. So what are the criteria specifically? How does the organization apply to become a member of NPOC?
Well, first of all, NPOC is a constituency inside of a stakeholder group, which is the non-commercial stakeholder group. So in order to become an NPOC member, you have to be a member of the non-commercial stakeholder group. So you just have to fill in the application to the non-commercial stakeholder group, and in that application, you're going to find a box you can tick, you can check, that allows you to become as well an NPOC member. And you do have to be, in this case, a non-for-profit, and you have to own a domain name, at least one. Those are the two conditions. You don't have to be part of or you don't have to be influenced by a government. You don't have to defend commercial interests. Sometimes there are non-for-profits that defend, like chambers, that defend commercial interests. So it's pretty easy. If you're an NGO, a non-for-profit that defends non-commercial issues and that you're not tied to a government, you're electable for NPOC through the non-commercial stakeholder group.
Got it. So it seems very open and accessible to different organizations.
Absolutely, and the leadership is very open as well. So you don't have to go through a bureaucracy to talk to someone or to participate of this. I mean, as long as you have an email account or a chat or whatever media you can outreach to, you can at least become involved at different levels.
Right. So what are your advice for newcomers if they just become a member of NPOC or just a fellow or next gen coming to ICANN? What's your advice for them to get involved in ICANN and know about this policy?
I would say my first and main advice is to take your time to fully grasp and understand what the domain name system is about and how it affects your daily life or your specific interests. If you're an end user, it would be like, as an end user, how do you use domain names? Or the domain name system in general, because it can also go towards the security and stability of the system and not only about the representative identity you get from a string, text. My advice would be that once you define that, everything else sort of starts to fall in place. Why do you care about DNS? And then you're going to easily find out how can you approach that.
Thank you so much, Martin. I very appreciate all your information and insights, and thank you for talking to us today.
Thank you very much for having me.